The message of the parable in the gospel for today is anything but subtle. St. Luke says that Jesus told it to a particular group of people. People who not only thought of themselves as being righteous, but who looked down at most others with contempt. Why do you suppose does the church have us read or hear that parable now? What has it got to do with us? One point which is sometimes overlooked is that the two figures in it, the Pharisee and the tax collector, had gone to the temple not as tourists or as sightseers who came just to admire the huge, impressive temple building. Jesus says the Pharisee and the tax collector came to the temple because they were religious people. Both came for the same reason, to pray. So perhaps we have something in common with them, since that may be the same reason you and I are here this morning. But that's where the similarity ends. In the Pharisee's prayer, he expressed gratitude that he was not like other people who, in his judgment, were not as religious, not as honest, not as moral. He reminded God of the good and pious things that he did. A contemporary version might be to pray honestly, thanking God that you go to church and receive the Holy Eucharist every Sunday, that you pledge a hefty sum of money to the parish, and that you serve faithfully on the vestry, happily sing in the choir, or some other expression of commitment to God and the church. But maybe, consciously or not, at the same time, might you be comparing yourself to your neighbor who comes to church only every so often and never seems to do anything for the life of the parish? It's easy to see the parable as being about pride, other people's pride. After rereading it and then praying about it in preparation for preaching today, I found myself thinking back to a moment in my life. It's a moment I'm embarrassed to share with you, but it reflects why today's parable hit a nerve in me. As one gets older, it's understandable that special days or anniversaries bring back memories, some glad, some sad. In 3 days, I will celebrate, and that's an understatement, celebrate the 64th anniversary of my ordination to the priesthood. And I've been going through albums with photographs and memorabilia which bring those long ago days into the present. With that background, go back with me, if you will, to the day before my ordination. The bishop had called me into his office to receive my assignment. Even now, I remember his words so clearly. He said, "Al, you may already know that the other 9 members of your ordination class are going to parishes as curates, but I am appointing you to be the vicar of a church. I want you to understand not only where I'm sending you, but what you will face there. Don't get a swelled head about being in charge. That church is in such bad shape, you can't hurt it." And the bishop was not exaggerating. For 2 years before my arrival, each week had seen a different priest. So there was little continuity, and one by one, people had drifted away to other parishes and to none. The church building had been destroyed by an arsonist, leaving only a parish hall, and that facility was rented out to the town for weekday use as a school. On my first Sunday, the total attendance of 13 was even higher than usual, having been boosted by the presence of a number of curious former parishioners. Each Sunday, before the service, I had to ask for help in putting aside desks, chairs, and school equipment, and replace them with an altar, pews, and other church furniture. And after Mass, asked for help to reverse it all. I was there for 8 years, and I loved it. With the aid of the diocese, an impressive new church was built, and we started a parochial school which brought in quite a number of families with young children. Our parish became known as one of the fastest growing churches in the diocese, and to put it mildly, I was very proud of myself. When I heard that the rector of a larger parish on the opposite side of the island was going to retire, I thought, I'd like to have that spot. So, thinking about my record and all that had been accomplished, or all that I had accomplished, I went to the bishop and asked if he would put my name in as a candidate, confidently expecting a happily positive response. To my surprise, the bishop said no. Then, in a kindly way, he explained why. It turned out that most of the vestry and many of the other key members of that parish belonged to the exclusive country club. That country club always made the rector of the Episcopal Church an honorary member. It was a perk that went with that position. The bishop said that since that club didn't accept Jews as members, the parish wouldn't accept me as their rector. I remember how stunned I was and just stared at the bishop for a long moment. My sense of self was simply that I was a priest who had done a really good job in rebuilding a failing parish. And like many other converts, I had been so enthusiastic about the Episcopal Church, and now that same Episcopal Church seemed to be rejecting me as not really being one of them. Now that experience happened over 50 years ago. I have long since made my peace with it and accepted the reality that whether it be a particular parish, a religious denomination, or some other kind of community, no group is made up entirely of perfect or even nice people. There are usually saints and schlemiels in any of them. There was one perfect man, and he died on a cross. So going back to the parable, think about why the Pharisee was so proud of himself. He fasted twice a week. He gave a tithe, that is 10% of his all income, to the temple. Those were good things to do. What was wrong with that? The answer is simply nothing. There's nothing wrong with what he did. It was the way he did it. In his pride, he was saying, God, look at me and all I do for you. Aren't you grateful to have someone like me? And the tax collector at the opposite end of the scale, in the face of his human imperfection, simply asked God for mercy and forgiveness. I think it would be wrong to hear the parable as telling us that there are just two possibilities: exaggerated pride in ourselves or seeing ourselves as miserable failures. There are things of which to be inordinately and wonderfully proud, like being on an undefeated volleyball team. Go Bulldogs! And there are things for which we need to ask forgiveness from God as well as from other people. St. Teresa of Avila was asked how she could possibly live a godly life in the face of the many problems and temptations to pride which came with her impressive achievements in reforming the Carmelite order. Her response was, Teresa alone cannot. But Teresa with God is an absolute majority. Part of our baptismal liturgy provides a realistic balance. The priest asks a series of questions to all present concerning their faith and intentions about living out that faith. The response is, I will, with God's help. I hope we hear today's gospel as good news, in order for all our inordinate and misplaced pride, as well as being blind to the times, God's grace has enabled us to do something good, something beyond our unaided effort. God is there for us. Count on it. Depend on it. Because it's true. Amen.